At the United Nations General Assembly in New York, the Iranian representative opened his address with words of faith and reverence. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, he began, setting a solemn tone for what would become a wide-ranging speech that blended religious conviction, moral appeals, and sharp political critique. He reminded the audience of this year's Assembly theme, quoting it as "Better Together, 80 years and more of peace, development, and human rights." He framed the motto as more than a ceremonial phrase. It was, he argued, a call to solidarity and to a shared vision for a brighter future. Drawing on religious traditions across cultures, he said that human dignity rests upon values like truthfulness, wisdom, purity, and benevolence. To illustrate this, he cited the prophets and sages of different faiths. He quoted Jesus Christ, "Act towards others as you would have them act towards you." He reminded the assembly of the Prophet Muhammad's words, "None of you is a true believer unless he desires for others what he desires for himself." From Judaism, he drew upon the teaching of Hillel the elder. "That which is hateful unto thee, do not do unto thy fellow." These principles, he argued, form the shared moral foundation of all divine faiths, Eastern traditions, and even secular schools of ethics. But after invoking this golden maxim, he turned to a darker reflection. "Is this the state of our world?" he asked. He pointed to recent years as evidence that humanity had betrayed these teachings. He spoke of genocide in Gaza, the repeated violation of sovereignty in Lebanon, the devastation of Syria, the war in Yemen, the starvation of children, and the assassination of Iranian scientists. He argued these acts were carried out or enabled by heavily armed powers, most notably the United States and Israel, often under the pretext of self-defense. Then came his rhetorical challenge to the audience: would you countenance such things for yourselves? Who is the disturber of the stability of the region and the world? Who is the actual threat against international peace and security? Turning to direct accusations, he spoke of what he described as savage aggression against his country in June. He declared the aerial assaults of the Zionist regime and the United States of America against Iran's cities, homes, and infrastructures, precisely at a time when we were treading the path of diplomatic negotiations, constituted a grave betrayal of diplomacy and a subversion of efforts towards the establishment of stability and peace. According to him, these attacks killed commanders, children, women, scientists, and ordinary citizens, striking at the very possibility of peace. He warned that if the international community failed to oppose such behavior, the violations would spread. Assassinations of leaders, assaults on safeguarded nuclear facilities, and systematic targeting of journalists could become normalized. Again, would you countenance such acts for yourselves? He asked the hall. The representative placed Gaza at the heart of his address, citing more than 35,000 civilian deaths. He accused Israel of depriving Palestinians of food, water, medicine, and healthcare. He declared that despite all this, Iran would never surrender. This nation, with a magnanimous spirit and an eternal will, has time and again demonstrated that it shall never bow before aggressors. He portrayed Iran's 12-day defense against attacks as proof of national resilience. Despite severe sanctions, propaganda campaigns, and attempts to divide its people, he said Iranians had risen together in support of their armed forces. He thanked governments, organizations, and individuals who had stood with Iran during the crisis, framing their support as a recognition of Iran's right to defend itself. His words then returned to Israel, this time with a broader accusation. He condemned what he called the delusional scheme of a greater Israel, a project openly backed, he said, by the Israeli Prime Minister. According to him, this vision was not about peace, but about expansion and domination, imposed not through political consensus, but through sheer military force. He dismissed Israel's doctrine of peace through strength, saying, "Yet this is neither peace nor power. It is nothing but aggression rooted in coercion and bullying." By contrast, he painted a picture of Iran's desired future, a strong region of powerful neighbors united in cooperation. He spoke of a future where collective security is built through defensive cooperation, where human dignity and cultural diversity are honored, and where economic development is advanced through joint investments in science and infrastructure. He described a vision where energy security, equitable use of resources, and environmental protection were pillars of stability. This, he argued, would be a peace not imposed by force, but derived from unity and mutual strength. The issue of weapons of mass destruction took up a central part of the address. He reminded the Assembly that Iran has long advocated for a region free of nuclear arms. Yet, he argued, the countries with the largest arsenals had pressured Iran with sanctions and accusations based on what he called spurious allegations. He accused 3 European nations of acting in bad faith by trying to reinstate expired Security Council resolutions against Iran, even after years of failed negotiations and US withdrawal from the nuclear deal. He argued these nations misrepresented Iran's legal actions as violations and painted themselves falsely as responsible parties. He warned, this unlawful measure possesses no international legitimacy and will not garner the approbation of the international community. Then came his declaration, I hereby declare once more before this Assembly that Iran has never sought and will never seek to build a nuclear bomb. We do not seek nuclear weapons. This is our belief based on the edict issued by the Supreme Leader and by religious authorities. He insisted that Iran has never pursued weapons of mass destruction and never will. He contrasted Iran's position with Israel's, which he accused of destabilizing the region, while Iran, in his words, was punished unfairly. He invoked poetry to underscore the irony. One part of the world causes turmoil, while another part is punished for it. The Iranian official shifted tone in the final section of his speech, focusing on diplomacy and regional cooperation. He declared, the Islamic Republic of Iran welcomes peace and stability. We believe that the future of our region and of the world must be built upon cooperation, trust, and shared development. He reiterated Iran's support for peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan, calling for an enduring settlement that could strengthen ties between the two neighbours. He also expressed hope that the war in Ukraine would end with a fair and lasting agreement between Russia and Ukraine, easing the human suffering it has caused. In another gesture toward regional diplomacy, he welcomed the defence pact between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, describing it as the foundation for a wider security system among Muslim countries of West Asia. The address concluded on this note of cautious optimism. Iran, he said, envisions a region where sovereignty is respected, cooperation is embraced, and peace is built not on coercion, but on mutual strength. The speech, lasting several minutes, blended appeals to moral principles with sharp denunciations of US, Israeli, and European actions. Its core message was that Iran sees itself as both a victim of aggression and a force of resilience, committed to regional peace on its own terms. By quoting prophets, denouncing violations of international law, and promising never to seek nuclear weapons, the representative attempted to project Iran as a nation unjustly maligned, yet steadfast in its values. For listeners, the address was both confrontational and aspirational, an indictment of powerful adversaries and a plea for cooperation in a region long scarred by war. The message ultimately was one of defiance wrapped in the language of peace. Iran will never bow to pressure, but it will continue to call for solidarity, dignity, and a shared commitment to a just future.